Welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore the defining moment that shape extraordinary people into who they have become. Today's guest is Dr. Julia Collier, educator, Dean of Well Trained Mind Academy, education consultant, community builders, someone who has spent 25 years finding creative ways to guide people to place they did not know they could go. She holds a PhD, once topped the sales charts at an Avon lady, intern at MoMA, work at Liberian, and led spin classes at NYU. And it turned out all of it into matters. It's really a pleasure and honor having you on the show.
Thank you very much. It's always
Yeah.
funny to hear these random things that I've done in my life.
Thank you. Good to have you here. So, Julia, your parents were immigrants from home education was everything. Before you have any idea of what you want to do with your life, who were you growing up in that household? And what did that sacrifice and expectation feel like from the inside?
I didn't know, you don't know anything else other than the home in which you're raised. And I think my experience growing up is certainly different from what I think about how that experience shaped me now, because they're two totally different things. So as a kid, I wanted to please my parents. I listened to them, I followed their advice. And while now I have a lot of feelings about my own decision making and the path that I had taken, I'm grateful that I had gone down that path and followed what they told me to do in that
Yeah.
house because it set me up for so much success in my life. And it's
Mm.
really only super advantageous point of success where I'm happy with my life that I can go back and be like, well, I don't know if that was the best thing, or, oh, you could have done it better. And as a parent myself, of course, there's so much you look back and you think, well, I'm going to do it differently because of this. And anyway, so yes, and I don't know if I ever sacrificed anything. I didn't think I was sacrificing things at the time other than like a normal American social life. I found ways. I was a little bit of what my mom would call a gówniarz, which is Polish. And I'm sorry for anyone if that's even worse or worse. It is, but it just was like a bad girl, like a baddie. So I found
Yeah.
ways, but I think of it more as being grateful with a lot to think about, but I'm grateful more than
So you said the central challenge that shaped you was figuring out who you were outside of your parent expectation. When did that first feel the weight of that question, and what made it so hard to answer?
I think I really started to ask myself that question when I was sort of halfway through my PhD. So it was I was old. That was a long time. But I think the question was there and affecting me much earlier because there was a lot of time in my early 20s where I felt very restless and I felt dissatisfied and I didn't really know why. And now, I thought I was living in New York City at the time. And so at some point I said, when I do go to grad school, I want to do it out of New York City. I don't want to be here anymore. And I think I might have mistaken all of these internal questions as being a result of growing up in the city in my 20s. Uh, that there's a lot of confusion, but I think I really got to the point of what do I want to do when I was almost done with school? For me, it was much later because I went to go on for a long time. And then I had to figure out what kind of job I wanted. And I had thought, like, wow, I've never actually thought about that other than the normal track of what you would do in your degree. It was the first time I sort of felt like I had my own sovereignty, like I had my own choices. And it was much later because grad school was so long.
Amazing, amazing. Also, you started teaching at 25 years, leading spin classes at the end, uh, YU gym, and
Uh-huh.
describe loving the feelings of guiding a room to a place they did not know they could go. What did that experience reveal to you about yourself? What did that experience reveal to you about yourself that the classroom never had?
That the classroom never had. It was so much fun. Maybe not. I guess I had fun in class as well, but it's a very powerful feeling to take people from one place to another in a short
Yeah,
period of time. And it's really obvious you're doing it in a physical fitness class because you're seeing bodies move and you can see the difference between not sweaty and sweaty.
yeah. So
You
true.
get that same very visual confirmation when you're just reading or writing, but, you're still doing it, and I think I really love that feeling of showing others where they could go, what they could do, what they were
Yeah.
capable of.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So you earn a master's degree paid by the NYU while working at the gym. then a PhD from Williams and Mary's. But by your own admissions, you never fully thought through what you actually wanted to do with any of
Yeah.
it.
What was I really chasing during those years? I don't know. I think I'm trying to figure that out right now. It's really interesting that your podcast is the making of me and you're young because it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't ever stop. And the hope is that it doesn't stop. The hope is that you're the kind of person who
Yeah.
wants to
Keep
make
evolving.
yourself better always, wants to have a better experience of the world, wants to help others have a better experience of the world. So I would
Yeah.
imagine someone like that, which I strive to be like, is always figuring things out. And I certainly, there's a lot to unpack, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Amazing.
I really don't know what I was chasing.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So you eventually advise students thinking about humanitarian PhD not to do it. That's a striking thing for someone with a PhD to say. What do you know now that you wish someone had told you before you started?
The very practical thing is that if you think you're going to get a career at a university as a teacher, as a college professor, at least in the United States, the typical idea of, oh, if you go to get a PhD, then you'll get a tenure track job at a university, that really doesn't exist anymore. The ease of that track. And I wish somebody had told me. I mean, they said it would be hard, but then they continued to accept people and you get funding and you go to these programs and everything seems possible, but then they're like, actually, the job market's really, really bad. And so you're getting trained for something. And not only that, not only are you getting trained for something, but then you're out in a job market where you're significantly older than everyone else. Even if it's only a couple of years now, things move so quickly that you're sort of out of touch. So I wish, and I know a lot of people are doing very good work in this area, is training graduate students how they can use their degrees elsewhere. I'm really good at the things I do, and I have many of those skills from working on my PhD, but I had to figure out how to translate that.
Amazing. I think we just speak volumes. So learning how to use what we have been taught in those particular platforms, especially the fact that times are changing and there's no longer more like job market. So beyond just learning those particular things you learn, you have to figure out how to use it, which the
Yeah.
school does not prepare you for. So it's something you have to do on your own. Yeah.
You have to be your own biggest fan.
Hmm.
Graduate school especially, and I want to be very specific because I imagine you'd have listeners, all over, is that in the United States, the graduate school experience in the humanities, so reading and research-based subjects, not the hard sciences or math. It's a really competitive world with like not a lot of reward. And so one of the things that happens in that world is that other people find their success by putting others down. Where I'm the kind of person that's like, high tide raises all ships, that the more one person does well, the more we all do well. And I'm also
Yeah.
someone who takes the time to like stop and celebrate. There was a point that I was making here. You said something about, oh yeah, you have to be your own biggest fan and you have to cheer yourself on because no one else was. So I remember in my graduate school experience, there was this marking point where you finish your classes, you have to do this big comprehensive exam, which then once you pass that, then you're able to go on to do your research and to work on your final of your degree. And so I remember after I passed my comprehensive exam, I threw myself a party. And I live in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I got me and my friends over to dinner, and then we went to Busch Gardens. And I remember, which is like a big theme park. And I remember one of the gals in the group saying to me, good for you for taking the time to throw this party for yourself. And I looked at her, I said, well, if I can't do it for myself, who else would do it for me?
Yes.
Like, you have to celebrate yourself. Like, I did that and I'm proud of myself. And I feel like that's especially for educators. It's hard for us to lift ourselves up because we spend our whole time lifting others up.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Be a fan of yourself. Yeah. Be the first one. Amazing. So leaving higher institution now, after everything you invested in it, is not a small decision. What made you walk away, and what did it feel like to step outside the identity you had building over the years?
Guess it wasn't that hard for me, to be honest. I feel like I always lived on the I've always lived on the edges of academia. I've never been I've never lived in the library. I love research, but I can also be hasty. I loved being with people and teaching, so I spent most of my time teaching rather than doing research and trying to get published. I wasn't really ever gonna be like a high flyer in the professorial world. So, I wasn't I never I wasn't and I think when I started realizing when I got to that point of like, "Oh, what do I wanna do with my life?" What we were talking about earlier, it was one of those things where I looked at the university and I looked at academia and I thought, "Where can I fit that feels good for me?" And it didn't really, I was and then so I did apply for the job market was notoriously tough, but because I had been teaching so much during my PhD rather than applying for grants and fellowships, I ended up getting the first job I applied for. And it was super competitive, and I got the job, and it was because I had so much experience in the classroom, which was amazing. And so, I had my legit assistant professor job for a couple of years. As when the opportunity came up to work with Susan Wise Bauer and the Wall Trade Mine Academy, it would just seem like a no brainer. I could see that I didn't have a future with inside of the university, and so why would I stay there?
Yeah,
Yeah. A
amazing,
future that
amazing.
I want, I have to say.
Yeah. You're also a mother and running a school, building personal brand, consulting with parents. How did
Mhm,
you hold all of these without losing the thread of who you actually are beneath all of the roles?
mhm. Oh, I think that who I am is the thing that informs everything I do. So, I might lose track of, like, an email or scheduling a calendar as
Yeah,
but as far the integrity I bring to everything I do at the academy, at the people that I talk to in my consulting roles and working on how I present myself to the world, it's all the same. Like I want for others. I want for others. Like I support and uplift others. And that is in every part of what I do.
yeah, amazing, amazing. So your consulting section now with parents often turn into something much bigger than curriculum planning. What's our parents really carrying when it comes to you, and what they mostly need to hear?
I make sure I spend some time talking when I first just like in easy conversation with a parent when we first start talking because I want to see what they're like. So it sounds funny because like you're on camera, but you can tell a lot about a person through their body language on camera, the way they're speaking, their ease, their where they're looking, how they're using their hands, if they're distracted, not distracted. So I also look to see for body cues when they talk about what it is that they're talking about with their child. So they might think that they're there because the child is struggling in school, but in fact, the child has some mental health things going on. And when they talk about the struggles that the student is having, let's say with friendships or with sleeping or with activities, and their body gets like smaller, you can see that
Yeah,
that's really where the attention is, not. And so, listen, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I have no licensure in educational psychology. So when I see that, I'm like, I'm not the person you should be talking to right now. Or at the end of the time we're talking and we do give curricular suggestions, then it's like, okay, but the person you really need to be talking to is XYZ, or try talking to this kind of or this kind of specialist because that's where you really need to be right now. And it's not really about math at all.
yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is really amazing. So you believe deeply that stories what's make us who we are and what bring
Mhm,
us together. How does that belief shape the way you approach education, both for students and for
mhm.
experts, non-educator, coach?
Mm, mhm. If you can tell a good story, you can sell anybody anything. And so when I say sell, I don't mean like, with money, but we use consumer language, but you can get someone to buy into what you are suggesting for them. So when you can connect whatever it is that you're trying to teach or a skill that you're trying to have your students acquire, and it's the same thing for anybody who is out there trying to connect with their audience in a book club, in a classroom, in a workshop, in an online course, someone who's building a course that they want to put up on Maven, something like that. You have to connect what it is that you're teaching to the person who is learning. And I would say, especially for adults, because that's where our interest lies. And for kids, when you can connect it to where they are in their life and who they are and how they're growing, then there's so much more investment in the experience because the story is about them and their learning and not something they don't care about.
Yeah, amazing. If you can tell a good stories, you can sell to anybody. Yeah, just a way of buying them to the way to what you make reference of. and binding towards your thoughts and aspiration. Yeah, this is really, really amazing. Yeah, thank you. Also, you describe yourself as a great connector, someone who help people figure out not just what they want, but how to actually get there. What do you see most often, or standing between someone and the thing they are trying to reach?
Indecision is the killer of everything. I mean,
Yeah.
don't quote me on that. There is an excellent book out there, or there's like this TED talk anybody could watch called The Paradox of Choice. And what's the guy's name? I have the book here. Anyway, I can't remember what his name is. It'll probably come to me in 5 minutes. But this paradox of choice is essentially the idea that when you have unlimited choice, you're supposed to feel happy. But instead, you feel sad because rather than celebrating the choice you make, you are mourning all of the choices you did not make.
You can
So this is a condition of modern society that no matter there's so much choice, it's so hard to feel like whatever choice you make is the right one.
yeah.
I also describe myself as at times going off on tangents. So and I'll tell I can ramble. We can talk about that for an hour, be rambling. But anyway, so
Yeah.
indecision comes from the endless possibilities. So when I work with people who are trying to find their zone of genius, trying to start their own personal brand and by building their business, like when I work with those people, they are looking at the hundreds of other people who are doing the same thing because they want to see what they're learning. They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Snapchat, they're on Facebook, whatever it is. And suddenly every other iteration of what they could be doing is showing up. And so now there's choice. And am I doing it the right way? What platform should I use? How should I talk to my people? Should I use this email service? Should I use that email service? There's like so many choices that they have analysis or like choice paralysis, analysis paralysis. And so, it just really helps to talk to someone to say, you should do this. And,
Yeah.
you can say that confidently when they would be happy with any of the decisions because they have, say you're talking to somebody who has researched 3 different really viable options and they just need you to pick it for them. Or they need to feel like whatever they choose is the right option. So sometimes you just need a sounding board
Yeah.
and asking the right questions that can help someone realize what they want and of the many choices is really, it's a great skill. So.
Yeah. Amazing. Also, lastly, what legacy do you hope your work leave, especially for the students, parents, and educators who are trying to find their own paths in a world that keeps telling them there is only one right way to learn and grow?
Keep going. Let yourself be uncomfortable. And when you feel yourself doing things or feeling things or going in a way where it seems like you're going to turn away from the thing that you really want to do because you're uncomfortable, you're scared, let yourself get more uncomfortable because that means that something big is happening. And then if you can get through that discomfort and get through the other side and reach your first goal, then you can handle anything that's coming up further. So just keep going. And when you feel uncomfortable, let yourself feel it. Let yourself feel it, live in it, and then move through it rather than trying to push it away.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, keep going. Other than pushing it, live in it. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Julia. This has really, really been amazing. So from our audience who would love to reach out, either for coaching sections or more like I'll reach out with some couples of questions or to connect with you and follow you on your various platforms. How can they reach out and where is the best platform?
I don't have a lot going on and a presence right now. So you can get me on LinkedIn. So to be real, I'm thinking about how am I going to build a website? Do I want my own website? I need me for myself.
Yeah.
So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Julia Collier, Julia K. Collier on there too. And you can email me, juliacollier@zohomail.com.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Julia. Definitely the link to your LinkedIn will be added to the show notes for my audience to easily reach out. Yeah, thank you so much for such warm, honest,
You're so welcome.
and genuine, energizing conversation. Your journey just reminds us that parts that's most scattered from the outside is sometimes the one building the most interesting persons on the inside. From spin class to man, the PhD to leading a school that is redefining what education can look like. Your story is a proof that figuring out who we are outside of everyone else's expectation is not a detour. It's a whole point. It's really a pleasure and honor have you on the show, Julia.
Thank you.